Hey folks, it's great to be here. This is actually my first talk, so you can feel free to throw things at me now, later, any point. I've got some good reflexes, so yeah. What we're going to be talking about today is pfSense. I absolutely love this. It is essentially a firewall and a router is the simplest way to explain this. But you can make this out of literally anything. So you can get some garbage hardware off of eBay. You can get professional Netgear hardware. You can build these out of virtual machines on your own with professional like VMware. You can do cloud-based, Azure, AWS, any of it. It started back in 2004 as an existing firewall project, and it's FreeBSD based. So for something like this, it has had a long time to mature and really come to fruition. So there's a lot of really great services and packages that we're going to be talking about today. So it got its name from trying to make it as simple as humanly possible to do stateful packet inspection on your firewall. It's fully open source, and it's actually my favorite kind of open source. It's open source in the sense that you can just download it yourself, like I said, install it on your own hardware, and then if you so decide, get into paid support options. So you can have full licensing from Netgate where anything, any kind of issue, you can call them 24/7. So we're going to talk about why you would use something like this. So every network is different. So I can't answer for all of you why you would use something like this. I know for me, the reason I set out to build this on my own is to make sure I had a really good, solid understanding of eating my own dog food when it came to SSL inspection, having an IPS, and setting all of my network traffic for VPN tunneling. This cost me very little. I mean, I think I built the whole thing with the TAC Lite subscription, so the pfSense Plus, for like $100. So you really can't beat that. And what I love about it is it also gives me extremely granular control over everything on my network. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the packages that this offers. So we've kind of already talked about how you get it. Basically, what you're going to use is they have the official, Netgate is the company that actually maintains these kind of images. So you can just go straight to their website. They're going to have these for you and allow you to download it, either the community or the professional edition. You used to be able to get the Plus totally free. Now is $129. So basically, all they're going to tell you from a support perspective is point you to the documentation. It's a lot like when I was in the 5th grade, they would just say, hey, if you don't know the word, look it up in the dictionary. It's going to be the exact same thing if you go with that kind of subscription. So for something like this, if you're really wanting professional enterprise support, you're going to have to go for a higher tier plan. So that kind of gets us into the packages that pfSense offers, because that's where a lot of the functionality comes out of. I really feel like Suricata is the crown jewel of this. And when we're talking about detections and mysteries, there's nothing quite like something like Suricata that's going to allow you to look at all of your network traffic and make sure that you don't have a bunch of threats going on with it. Suricata is absolutely fantastic in terms of just out of the box, you can have these kind of free open source threat feeds from some of the most popular companies in the industry. So just Proofpoint, Emerging Thread, Snort, and it's even Snort subscriber you can just sign up for. Doing SSL blacklists, your botnets, and all of this is completely updated via cron jobs. I never have to look at this once having it set up. So you're just fully able to pick and choose what you want. And again, you just have the flexibility of getting a paid threat feed for any of these, for your Snorts, for your proof points, all of that. And it's not just an IDS, it truly is that IPS mode to where you're seeing your alerts, you're getting threats coming in, and you're able to block and sinkhole that kind of traffic. So it's absolutely fantastic. And what I love is something like this 3 core seg. It's got a test my NIDs. So basically this is a website that you can go to and you can make sure that this is working properly. So you can throw a ton of traffic at yourself and make sure, hey, am I getting the alerting? Am I getting the blocking that I want? I love doing that kind of thing proactively because then I've got so much that I'm already blocking. So if that were to ever occur afterwards, I'm gonna see that's gonna fully block it. And so that's why I've got my nice meme about the meddling kits, because I truly feel like this is one of the crown jewels of the product and one of its best features. So that leads us to something called CrowdSec. This is a really interesting open source project that is a great add-on to pfSense because it's just further threat feeds for your pfSense firewall. The link that I have in here, it's showing you step by step how you can add this on to your pfSense firewall for additional threat feeds that are mostly from TCP IP based real malicious threat actors. So it has a very well curated network block list, and it's actually pretty cool in terms of being able to do things as prevent port scanning. I love having something like my NetHunter that I can just throw at this thing, do an nmap scan, whatever, and it's gonna shut it down immediately. It is not gonna have that, it's not gonna return me back the ports. I find that to be a really, really great feature for it. And again, this is fully autonomous. So basically you just pick your feeds and that's all you have to do. It's going to update those firewall rules for you and you're going to get all of that functionality out of it. So very nice. So if you want to put DNS in a chokehold, PF Blocker NG is one of the other main crown jewels that I find for pfSense. So, I mean, there are hundreds of threat feeds. And I mean, it's going everything from your cryptojackers, your phishing, your Tor. And I think it's kind of funny because they talk about like, hey, don't enable these all at once. So yeah, 200 plus feeds, not a good idea to enable all at once. But yeah, you've got like your spam hash, your fish tank, your alien vault. And again, it's just based on cron jobs. So you're not gonna have to do any maintenance to this other than just enabling the feed. And that's it. And not only for that, you have something like this that you add, you're automatically gonna have that recursive DNS functionality of it. So what's meant by that is, you know, for me as a millennial, I still remember like the yellow pages that would show up to my door. And like, you know, if you manually go through your phone book and you're entering in, you know, you're looking for the pizza joint or whatever, that's how DNS normally works. You're reaching out to some provider like Google and you're saying, hey, go find this thing for me. Not so with something like Unbound and a recursive DNS. It's basically like having that caller ID. So basically just having them saved as a contact and going straight there. So huge win. Not necessarily a pfSense feature, but if you combine something like this with a custom DNS, like a Pi-hole or a Cisco Umbrella or something like that, you are going to have DNS security like nothing else. So that gets us into talking about Squid. So with those links that I have there, what we're looking at is basically a timeline of how Netgate has chosen to respond to Squid. So what Squid is it's a caching forward and reverse proxy. Basically, what you would do with this is how SSL inspection is done. So malware these days is often encrypted. Everything's HTTPS. A lot of times you need to break that down and to see, okay, what am I actually connecting with? What are my users clicking on? Things of that nature. So Squid is really the only main vehicle to do this for. And what happened is back in October, there was a ethical hacker who had been working with Squid. Squid's been around since like the 90s. So he was working with them, pointing out the vulnerabilities, saying, hey, we've got a ton of exploits here. He was like, these are nice folks, you know, we keep talking about this, but basically revealed this to say, hey, they're not fixing the problem. They don't have enough people. He was trying to bring awareness to preserve this project that's been around for decades. So he does this, and Netgate's response to it, other than helping, is saying, hey, we're gonna completely discontinue this. This will be gone in the next upcoming version. So with that, basically what the ethical hacker did, what worked, it got a ton of people to re-engage with the project and fix those vulnerabilities in newer versions. Netgate chose not to do anything about that. So the community itself updated Squid. So I've got the link there for the updated package to it, and it works absolutely great, just as the old one did. So with them not fixing it, I think that's a good time to talk about what a disappointment that is and how important it is for open source projects like this, that for companies like Netgate that profit from this, they pitch in. I mean, we're in an age where Microsoft is actively contributing to the Linux kernel. That's a future I would have never predicted, but is extremely, extremely important to keep these kind of things alive, especially when it's something that that particular company can profit from. So what that does is that takes us into the other side of proxying on pfSense. So with pfSense, we have the HA proxy. So what this is mostly for is for being able to do load balancing on your firewall and for your applications. So it's got a lot of great features. Does an excellent job of health checks, letting you know if something goes down. You know, it does all types of rate limiting and improves in performance through SSL offloading. So it's really fantastic DDoS protection. And then it's compatible with certificate authorities such as Let's Encrypt. So another really great feature of pfSense is the captive portal. So pfSense has really excellent captive portals. So if you're trying to make sure that you have a log of who's on your network, restricting access to maybe certain bandwidths or times, pfSense is a great solution for that. And then when we talk about how you can actually take these pfSense logs and use them for ingestion into like your SIM, your XDR, it really does allow you to go with just about anything via its remote syslog feature. So that should take care of all your big, your Sentinels, your Splunks, any of those professional grade SIMs. But what I really want to highlight is how for these open source solutions, such as your Security Onion, your Waza, and your Blumera, they just have a bunch of native integrations for it. And then taking those kind of Suricata alerts and being able to just forward that on is a huge win. So what I linked to in terms of the Waza article, that's even where you can just throw an agent on it. So very, very useful to get even EDR protection on your firewall. So another interesting thing that I wanted to point out, because when you talk about competitors to something like a pfSense, is your firewall or an open WRT. So when we're talking about pfSense, you don't have an app, but what you do have is a really excellent mobile web page. So I run all kinds of updates from my phone just with the mobile web page. I do all kinds of network testing and responding to alerts from my phone with a mobile web page. So not quite a firewall with its own app, but very close with the mobile web page. Another interesting thing to talk about here is back in April, Netgate released an article stating that, hey, we're going to move off of the FreeBSD platform that we've used for 20 years, and we're going to move that over to the Linux kernel. They decided to do this on April Fools, so hard to tell if that's an actual thing or not, and if anybody knows, I would love to hear about that because I'll be talking about this for a while. Could go either way. I think if anybody has had the pain of dealing with the FreeBSD ports and like their fresh ports, a lot of things aren't supported. So there could actually be some really great gains for them switching over to a Linux kernel. And just some examples of that are other open source security packages, such as like your OS query, your Tailscale, or even just Elastic agents to be able to get other EDR agents onto your firewall. So some resources that I recommend to get started with this is Network Chuck is a YouTuber that has a great video on pfSense, giving you great explanations of all the things that you can do with it and how to set it up. Lawrence Systems is a company that does professional pfSense installs with Netgate hardware. So even if you have a multi-WAN environment, Lawrence Systems can absolutely help you out, and they have tons of YouTube videos on this. Like I was saying about the dictionary, the docs are often the best place to go for when you're getting started or trying to first get familiar with projects or with the different products for pfSense. A lot of times, I've got to say, AI has been extremely helpful, especially when you're getting confused about configuration or what certain things do and how packages interact with each other. You know, your Bings, your ChatGPTs, your Geminis, and if you're weird, Anthropic. All super, super helpful in breaking these concepts down into bite-sized pieces that help make sense of what it is you're doing. There's a great Reddit community in terms of pfSense. And of course, Netgate has its own forums where you can reach out to other community members, get help, get better understanding, and support one another. And with that, that is another mystery solved, Scoob.
So that was super interesting. I am personally an Open Solaris person, so I'm always excited to see when people talk about technologies that are on non-Linux platforms. But of course, what always comes up is this issue of like, well, we can do some cool things in the kernel, but then like you said about ports, like, the user space stuff can be a little out of date and lacking and things aren't supported. What do you see? You mentioned some of the advantages of moving to Linux. Do you know, or what do you see as some of the disadvantages of maybe moving that out of FreeBSD where it has lived for so long?
Well, FreeBSD is honestly like the Cadillac of security, just in terms of like you have SE Linux as opposed to like AppArmor. When you're talking about a Unix platform like that has been maintained for decades, switching to a new platform is always a risk in terms of opening up new vulnerabilities and such a learning curve to make such a big change.
If anybody has got any questions for Kyle, come up to the front and you can use this microphone, and that way we can get it recorded as well, because if you holler from the back, I'll have to retranslate into the microphone and I might screw up your question. Yeah. Yes, please.
I'm just curious if you've messed with pfSense as well and compared the two.
I have some experience with it. Again, I just prefer pfSense because the amount of time they've spent with it and all the integrations that it has, because you're not going to find the same level of, say, those kind of SIM integrations as you would with pfSense. I mean, Security Onion's integration with it, you get all those beautiful dashboards out of all your different alerts and things. You're just not going to find that with OpenWRT.
Any other questions?
Your first slide.
Here, let me get you into the
Yes,
microphone.
I'm sorry. I meant to mention that, but yeah, I can go back to that, or maybe.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. Here, I don't want to take it too far into the audience because of the feedback. Oh, I can. Okay, never mind. I misunderstood. Okay.
So I recently started swapping out pfSense for smaller FortiGates just because of ease of fleet management through things like FortiManager. Did pfSense add anything for like multiples? I know Lawrence System had some videos, but was there any like multiple management? Like if I need to clone the management across pfSense to multiple sites or yeah.
Yeah, my suggestion would be checking them for that specific use case, as well as just reaching out to the Netgate folks. They're going to let you know in terms of a multi-WAN solution, where they're at with things.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Kyle. That was excellent. Round of applause, please.